Looking back at the start of my UX design journey, there are two essential books I wish I had read earlier to supercharge my career growth. In this video, I'll dive into these game-changing reads that every single UX designer needs to know about. Make sure you watch till the end because there's one bonus book recommendation that can completely change the way you look at your life. So without wasting any further time, let's get started. So, I have two books here, and the first book is a pretty underrated one, and it's called Rework. Now, if I were to show you each and every page of this book, not sure if you can see it, has been underlined. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. So here are 6 key lessons that I have learned from this book called Rework. On lesson number 1 is that learning from mistakes is overrated. Mistakes only teach you what not to do, but they don't teach you what to do next. So even though this concept is pretty easy to understand, a lot of people don't implement this in their product designs. So I see a lot of people directly jumping onto their Figma screens without understanding that they need to learn from people who have done it right. So what I see is I would have people come to me and say that these are the things that we have done wrong. Can you tell us how to write a case study? Can you tell us how to make better products? And I'm like, why are you going into this alley without learning from the legends? So what you need to do is, instead of just focusing on improving yourselves and fixing your mistakes and waiting for yourself to make mistakes and learn from them, you can simply start learning from people who have done it really, really well. Now, there are websites like growth.design, there's Built for Mars, there's Mobin, there's Page Flows, there is SaaS interfaces. All of these websites are going to teach you what people are doing right. And you need to spend maximum amount of time figuring out what are the things that I should do rather than figuring out your own mistakes and iterating and taking feedback and learning from mistakes. On lesson number 2 is the fact that planning is just guessing. We have most information when we're doing something, not before we've done it. Yet, we always make plans before we start anything. Now, as soon as a UX designer gets his or her first job or first internship client or first case study, this person gets super excited and gets too deep into planning every single thing about the app in the research phase itself. So the designer is in this misconception that if I design all wireframes end to end, if I map out the entire information architecture beforehand, my design process will become very easy. That is not how it works in the real world. It is better to have some basic idea about the problem that you're planning to solve, some basic idea of how your competitors are doing it, take good amount of inspiration of what people are doing right, improvise on top of that, design something, create a prototype, show it to your customers or to your internal team members, and then iterate on top of that. Rather than saying that I will plan everything, I will plan the entire sprint, I'll have a 1-month timeline into the future. Folks, you are unaware of the things that you don't know. You're unaware of all of the assumptions that you already have in your brain as a bias. It is always best to design and ship fast. Get feedback and iterate on the go. And do not plan all your use cases internally. Instead, get the product out and plan as you receive feedback on the go, which is very, very important because you don't know what you don't know. And the most valuable feedback that you can get on your designs is from other people, from non-designers, and from your customers. On lesson number 3, we have the fact that working more doesn't mean that you care more or get more done. It just means that you work more. Workaholics make up for intellectual laziness with brute force, and this results in inelegant solutions. So the thing is, anytime folks learn something new on Figma or get a bunch of resources, they think that if I spend more time designing on Figma, if I collect more resources, if I write more, it essentially means that I'm working more, which essentially means that I will get better results. That is completely false. If you're working hard in life, it just means that you're working hard in life. Your hard work has no direct correlation to the output you get in life and the amount of money that you get paid in life. The compensation your managers or your company give you, the compensation is directly tied to the outputs and not the hard work or the effort or the dedication, because they care about the outputs and not your research and processes and all the effort you put into, crafting your Figma files. You need to be very clear about this. And you need to tell yourself that, am I replacing intellectual smartness with just hard work? Am I just hustling because I'm not creative enough to find better solutions? And in a lot of cases, you'd realize that just because you know detailed stuff, just because you know all of these complicated features, you're overcomplicating a solution that can be simplified. So instead of saying that I will make all the the detailed styles, variables, components, the most complicated system ever just because I know how to do so. You will end up falling into a rabbit hole. You need to keep things as simple as you can. Just because you know a lot of design processes and you have a lot of resources and plugins, it doesn't mean that you need to include everything. Because if you're working hard, if you're making things complicated, it doesn't mean that you're just working better. It just means that you are only working hard. Which also extends to the fact that a lot of designers stay away from open source. A lot of designers are unaware of the free libraries available on the internet. Free icon libraries, free Google fonts, free icon templates or just UI templates that they can build on top of. So don't try to reinvent the wheel. If you're making interactions that are already in the marketplace, try to resemble your applications with the bigger applications because customers appreciate the fact that you look similar to the app that they've already been using. Before you move ahead, I want to tell you about our latest learning website, howtoprom.in, where you can get free AI resources, roadmaps, and step-by-step guides that will teach you everything that you need to know about tools like ChatGPT and Midjourney. In fact, you can also know about my offline masterclasses, AI courses, ebooks, and communities all in one place. Visit howtoprom.in to start learning and upskilling yourself. On lesson number 4, understand the fact that you need less than you think. Embrace your constraints because it's very easy to throw money hoping that it will save you. Limited resources force you to make do with what you've got. Now, when you're starting out, you would always have a couple of excuses pop up in your brain that maybe if I had better internet, maybe if I had a better laptop, if I had a mentor, if I had this course, if I had this subscription, I would be a better designer. Folks, it is just an excuse. I also used to give these excuses to myself. I know many designers who give these excuses that just because they don't have money, just because they don't have gadgets, just because they don't have subscriptions or a specific book or a specific certification, they can't solve better problems. I am telling you, I've been in the game for a very long time. I have also observed other folks in the same game. Nothing is stopping you from being resourceful. I'll tell you what you need. You need a decent internet connection. You need a decent laptop that can handle basic Figma designs, and that is all you need to do to get started. So if you're consistently learning from all the resources that I've shared in my previous videos, if you're slowly building towards your case studies, you will have enough experience to solve problems on the go. And when you join a startup, instead of saying that I need this and that, you will be creative. You will be resourceful. Because I'm telling you, 10 years ago, people have created incredible pieces of technology with half the resources, half the time, half the internet connection. We've sent people on different planets. We've sent people on the moon with the technology which was very, very normal. It wasn't like all the fancy gadgets that we see today, right? So keep that in mind when you're giving yourself excuses. On point number 5, we have a very crucial lesson that says build half a product, but not a full product with half the effort. I'll say that again. Build half a product, but not a full product with half the effort. Because when you're trying to ship a product, you feel like, okay, maybe I have 5 features. Let's do 3 of them really, really well. But I just don't want to release an app that only has 3 features. I want an app that has 5-6 features. So, we can focus on making these 3 features very, very well. And ye jo end ke 2-3 features hai, we'll just, do the bare minimum. Please don't do that. If you're launching a feature, it has to be executed end to end with proper copy, proper interactions, no bugs, proper accessibility, all edge cases solved. Please make sure that you don't spoil your brand by launching features that are incomplete or not very well thought. Because it is better to do just one thing really well end to end rather than doing one thing well with 4 things that you're doing on a mediocre level. So when you start, you will be tempted to fix everything. You can't do everything you want to do and do it well. I'll say that again. You can't do everything all at once and do it well. So the important principle here is to understand that you can achieve anything you want in life, but not all at once. So you need to prioritize. You need to understand what is a painkiller and what is a vitamin. And you solve your good to haves later on. And please make a bold mental note in your mind that sometimes you need to cut your ambitions if needed. And let's go out of UX. You will find a lot of directors and a lot of musicians and a lot of art galleries do the same. sometimes a movie is shot for 3 hours. And just because the director knows that his vision is not everything, it is also about what the people want, he or she would cut out scenes. A lot of musicians, they would make 12 songs but only keep 9 songs in the final album because they know that every single song has to hit it out of the ballpark. Those 3 average songs will dilute the value of those 9 incredible songs. So take inspiration from how directors edit their movies, from how musicians edit their EPs, and apply the same principle in your own user interfaces. So when you're starting, make sure you prioritize solving the biggest pain points, real problems, and don't chase good to haves. They can always come later. And if you want deeper understanding of what this means, I have created some very detailed videos on writing UX case studies. We also have a 15-episode course on UX design in both Hindi and in English. So that will give you a deeper insight on how these principles really work. And the last principle of this entire book is not actually a principle, but very interesting example that really stuck with me. And it said, what makes a museum great is the stuff that's not on the walls, which is very interesting to note. What makes a museum great is the stuff that is not put on the walls, which basically means that museum is valuable simply because of its ability to eliminate anything that is not above the benchmark. Because you don't make a great museum by showcasing all of the art. If you have all of the art stuffed in one single room, then it's not a museum, it's a warehouse. A warehouse is where you can find everything accessible very easily. So you need to be a curator, and I'm not just talking about for your case studies or your portfolio, even in your UI. Every single icon is consuming real estate. Every single word is actually consuming space. So you need to be a curator of your UI. Even on your portfolio, never have average work. On your Instagram, never have average work. I used to archive all of my stuff beforehand. Like there was a time in my college days when I would sit down and archive everything that I had published in the last year, because I don't want anybody to come across any average work on my YouTube or my Instagram. So even on my YouTube, you can just see like 200 videos, but I have archived 50-60 videos on my YouTube channel. There are some videos that I have never released. Why? Because they were bad. They were actually pretty bad. And I don't want anybody to come across any work that is not reflecting my current state of mind, my current level of expertise. So of course you can have some history, but slowly archive your very old work, because you need to be a curator, because you need to build a museum of great work and not just a warehouse. So with that, we have rework done. I will paste an Amazon link in the description. It's a soft-bound book, not that thick, but really well made. You will love the illustrations as well. Next, we have a book which is very popular within designers, and it is called Hooked. I'm pretty sure you would have seen this book on multiple UX design pages, and I'm not going to cover all the basic principles of this book, but just going to pick out some very interesting insights, small nuances that I picked from it. So I've picked 4 lessons from this book, and they're not only for designers, but if you share these lessons with your PMs and your CEOs and founders, it will help them to build better products as well. On lesson number 1, this book says that many innovations fail because consumers irrationally overvalue the old, while companies irrationally overvalue the new. I'll say that again. Consumers irrationally overvalue the old, while companies irrationally overvalue the new. Now, this entire philosophy was explained by a professor from Harvard Business School, and he explains that new products need to be at least 9 times better than the current alternatives, because people resist change. Right? So they really value things that they've been using so far, even if they are not that good. But when a startup enters the picture, the startup feels that, oh, our product is, really good than what is available into the market. So customers will really value this change. But the thing is, customers will not value some change or a product that is slightly better. They will not shift from their original alternative. They will shift to you if your offering is really good, like it is levels above. And this is primarily because old habits die hard. And if you want to create a successful product, if you want a good successful launch, you need to build products that are so good that they shake users out of their old routines. Now let's take an example of David Holtz, who's the founder of Midjourney, which is a very popular tool that creates images out of text prompts. In 2010, he had created Leap Motion, which was a super cool tool. Yet users didn't buy many of them. And I have used Leap Motion in my college. It was a tool that allowed you to interact with your computer with just your hovering hands, and it was crazy. When I saw it, I was like, everybody's going to buy it. But I felt that because I am from a tech background. But for a normal user, using their keyboard and mouse was pretty decent, because this leap motion thing was, first of all, slightly expensive, and it didn't give users that big of an incentive, because you still had to keep it in front of you. You had to hover your hands on top of it. So it was good, but it wasn't significantly better than what consumers were already using. But in 2022, the same person launched Midjourney, which was a massive, significant improvement from Google Images or Photoshop. And consumers shifted very easily. If not shifted, they at least adopted the tool very, very easily. So the entire history of how Midjourney was made, how Leap Motion was made, how the evolution of David Holtz happened from Leap Motion to Midjourney is something that you can always research about. But I personally have seen both Leap Motion and Midjourney, and I can see how this one single principle has helped David build such a massive company. On lesson number 2, this book says that almost all popular tech apps solve a need that was natural to us since the Stone Age. Now, this is very interesting to know, because if you pick any application that you've been using, they all solve a very intrinsic desire that we humans have. They might be solving loneliness, or boredom, or FOMO, or the sensation of not being good enough, or the sensation of not being pretty enough, right? They always target insecurities. They're designed in a way where they target our intrinsic desires more than, external motivations. And you would have already noticed this, that negative emotions have the strongest triggers. So earning 10 rupees might have some level of happiness, but losing 10 rupees is way more painful. So if I were to put sensations on a spectrum, a positive 10-point reaction will give you some dopamine, but a negative 10-point reaction will stick in your mind for a very long time. Similarly, in influencers, 10 good comments will fade away from your memory. One bad comment will stick with you for at least 1 or 2 hours. Because when you feel something negative, whether it's loneliness or FOMO or the sense of just not being good enough, these sensations motivate you to quickly find a solution. And when these applications fix that for you, you chase them, you pay them whatever money that they ask you. And then as you use that app again and again, as you secure that solution with just a few taps, you build a habit. So these applications figure out one internal desire to fix. Then you go to that app again and again, because if you're bored, you go to Instagram. If you want to get entertained, you go to Netflix. If you feel lonely, you go to a dating app. And because these solutions are accessible with just a few taps, your hands build a habit. Like you would open your phone and your thumb would directly tap on Instagram. It would directly tap on a specific application, because your hands are now forming an habit. But how do you build that habit? It always starts with solving a negative trigger, which is very, very intrinsic to us since the Stone Age. If you look closely, YouTube is modern theater, solving boredom. Twitter is modern debate, where people want to show off their intellectual thoughts. Instagram is modern photo albums, where people just want to look pretty and store their albums and show other people how good their life is. Spotify is modern phonograph, because monographs were like this vintage way of playing music and storing music, but now Spotify allows you to find new music, to actually escape your day-to-day problems by just tapping and listening to a song. So lesson number 3 is just an extension of what we've discussed in the previous lesson, but I wanted to pick this separately because it is very nuanced, but it is very, very important to understand this shift. So the book says that you need to take a human desire, preferably one that has been around for a really, really long time. Then identify that desire and use modern tech to take out the steps. Now, dating apps do this very, very well. So let's take 2 desires to make this example more relatable. One desire could be to learn UX design and to upskill yourself because you want to make more money. The second desire is to just have a partner, to just have more friends. Now, the desire to learn UX is a modern desire, or the desire to get the latest jacket or to get a streetwear brand or to get sneakers is a modern desire. It might be strong, but it has not been since the Stone Age. On the other hand, the desire to have friendships, the desire to have a partner, this is a desire that has been in the Stone Age for a very, very long time. So it is more intrinsically hardwired in us. Now, dating apps solve the problem of finding a partner. Dating apps solve the problem of feeling lonely. And because they do it so seamlessly, users come to those apps again and again, and they are extremely profitable. So what dating apps do is they take out the steps, because without the dating app, a person would have to step outside the house, meet multiple people, shortlist, understand what are their interests, and figure out if their interests align. Dating apps make this super, super simple. You open the application, you fill up your details, In 60 seconds, you now have access to multiple profiles and you just have to swipe. So they are making the process of elimination really, really simple. So this is something that you can do as a checklist. What problems are you solving? Is it a problem which has been in the game for a very long time? Or is this a very, very modern problem which is very, very niche? Next, you need to understand how many steps are you cutting off for the user to solve that pain point. The lesser the number of steps, the easier it is for the user to build a habit. And once they build a habit, they will come back to you again and again. The last lesson, on lesson number 4, the book talks about the fact that the mind is very lazy. It relies on shortcuts and surroundings to make a quick and sometimes incorrect judgment of the situation. Now, this is very, very interesting, and we've been talking about the concept of perception and first impressions in our 15 episode course. We've spoken about it in our UX case studies as well. There's also this principle called the aesthetics usability effect, where people say that if something looks good, people automatically assume that it works better and it is more valuable. So this book talks about 2 very interesting case studies. So one was an experiment where they had 2 cookie jars. One jar was filled to the brim. The other jar just had 4 or 5 cookies left. And they showed these 2 jars to a bunch of people and said, which cookie do you think is more valuable, or which cookie do you think would be more tasty? And people said that the jar which has lesser amount of cookies is probably more tasty. Why? Because your brain thinks that because it is scarce, it means more people want it. And if more people want it, then it's probably tastier. There's one more case study where there's a world-class violinist, Joshua Bell, and they show that in case number 1, this person was performing at this huge arena, right, which is the Kennedy Center, and this same person would sell thousands of tickets simply because this person had marketing and branding and the positioning, everything in one single place. They take the same violinist and they put him in a normal subway station. And you will be surprised to know that when this same violinist was playing at the subway station, nobody cared. In fact, I've also seen a video of Ed Sheeran do the same, that Ed Sheeran was just performing at this random street and only 2 or 3 people were paying attention to him. That brings us to a very important question, that sometimes it is not just the talent, it is not just the core skill, but also branding, perception, positioning, hype, and so many other parameters that make a product successful. Why do I put so much of importance on UI design? Because UI design and interaction design essentially makes your product look more premium, more finessed, more well thought, and it makes navigation really easy. And because it looks good, there's a high chance that your users will perceive it as a better product. So you need to use these mental fallacies and cognitive biases to your own advantage. We've created such a detailed video on UX UI breakdowns, another playlist on just UI redesigns where I take student work and I redesign it. I teach you how I redesign my UI. I teach you how I take my UI inspiration. All of these things will help you make better UI or improve the perception of your app in the eyes of your users. So yes, that was my review of these 2 books right here. I would strongly recommend you folks to get these books because they are extremely, extremely valuable. I have personally learned a lot from them. I got a hardbound of The Hook, but rework ka hardbound mujhe nahi mila. But there's one more book that I would strongly recommend you folks, and that is the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. ये book design से related नहीं है, but ये book आपको एक बेहतर life जीना सिखाएगी. It will teach you how to think clearly, how to prioritize. Like this one single book is extremely valuable, not directly about design in general, but it will help you become a better person, a better human being, a better thinker, a better problem solver, a better prioritizer, right? So I just thought I'll have this one bonus mention at the very end. Apart from this, we've been making some very good content on UX design, UI redesigns, spatial design for the Apple Vision Pro, and ChatGPT and Midjourney. I personally believe that this year, if you learn how AI tools work and if you have a basic understanding of how AR and VR works, you will have enough leverage in the month of Jan, and you will be in a position where you can charge really high salaries from the biggest tech brands in the world. Let me know in the comment section if you want more of such videos, if you want me to dig deeper into these books or tell you more books that I read. Make sure you click on subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you never miss an update, and hit the like button so that we get to know if this content is working for you or not. I hope that you're taking care of your mind and body. This is your dost Ansh Mehra signing out. If you like this video, make sure you click on like and hit the subscribe button. I regularly upload videos on UX design, marketing, and storytelling.